Hey everybody, welcome to the next edition of the Bobcat Cam webinar series. Today's topic is what is Bob Art and how to use it, an introduction to Bob Art. Now I ask you, have you ever struggled adding logos or artistic elements to your projects? If that's the case, then this is the webinar for you. Okay, the overview for today in today's webinar, we'll be looking at image files, which ones you can use and how to convert them. We'll also show you how you can transform 2D sketches into 3D shapes and how to reuse shapes and objects for future projects. As you know, my name is Al DiPaolo. I'm the voice of the Bobcat After Dark video series. You can find me on Instagram at Al DiPaolo or hashtag Bobcat After Dark. So to start with, what is Bob Art? Bob Art is a powerful tool you can add on to the Bobcat software, providing new file types you can work with, wireframe creation tools, 3D modeling, and V-carving toolpaths. Okay, so we're going to take a look at how we can use each of those different aspects of the software. If you guys aren't sure whether you have Bob Art or not, you can go to your license and you can see whether it's checked on or not. If you want to add Bob Art, it's very easy to add. You make a purchase, they unlock it to your license, and you'll have availability to it. The next thing we want to look at is who uses Bob Art? Well, Bob Art is used by anyone working with image files and non-mechanical elements of their designs. Common for woodworkers, job shops, manufacturers, and more. Really, it's probably our most popular software, and anybody that's got a CNC that wants to do some cool artwork or engraving or logos, Bob Art's for you. Now, what are you going to learn today? Well, today's webinar is an introduction to the 4 main features or tool sets that Bob Art brings to the table. We'll go through a sample of each. This way, you have a working knowledge of what can be done with the Bob Art and how you might use it in your shop. Now, we do have some special news for today. We have an introduction of a new product, and then we also have a bundle offer. Now, to get more information about this, you'll want to call Michelle Gerard. This is the number that you'll need to call. It's 877-209-9310, and Michelle will answer all your questions about the new product and also about the bundle packages we have available. So for more information about that, call Michelle. She's a great gal and very helpful. I'm sure she would look forward to hearing from you. And as always with Bobcat, you have fewer steps, better cuts, and more profit. So give me just a moment here to get my screen set up, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, guys, so hopefully I'm sure everybody can see my screen at this point. I just want to do a quick shout out to everybody who's here. So a couple of key things here. Any questions that you have, any questions at all, just go ahead and type it into the questions box. I will do my best to tackle them as they come up, or if I'm unable to tackle them as they come up, we'll go ahead and answer them at the end of the webinar. Also, by participating in today's webinar, you will get a recording of this webinar, and you will also get the Q&A answer sheet. So for all the questions that are asked, I'm going to answer them, and I write down the answers, and you guys get that as well, okay? So all questions, any question is good, just type it into the question box. Another thing here is, where's everybody from? If you can do a quick shout out, what state you're from, just go ahead and type that in the answer area, or I'm sorry, the question area, so I have an idea of where everybody is coming from. We got Gary from Oklahoma City, Ryan from Hawaii, or I might have messed that up, Timothy from PA. John, I just want to thank everybody for showing up here today. Brian, thank you so much from South Africa. We got Norbert from Minnesota. Brian, we got some regulars in here. Jeff from, let's see, they're moving so quick. Mexico, Missouri. Again, I really want to thank everybody for coming. Charles, Joshua, Joseph, Terry, Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. This is going to be a really fun webinar, a lot of really cool topics. Dennis from New Hampshire, thank you so much. Curtis from Oregon, very good. Thank you everybody for spending some time with us here today. I really appreciate you guys coming out. Now, all right, I got a lot of topics to talk about. The first thing that we're going to talk about here has to do with working with the image files. Now, BobArt is a tab, okay? It's a tab that you'll find with the DataCam Tree Manager, okay? And when you click on this tab, then you're going to get the different options that are available, okay? So the first thing we want to talk about is working with vector-based files, okay? So a vector-based file would be files that have lines and arcs, generally like a DXF or a DWG, that would be a vector-based file. But a lot of art programs like Photoshop use vector-based files as well, and you guys are able to open those files. Now, normally when you open a file, you go File, and then you go Open, and then you can pull from a directory, and you have a list of files that you can work with, okay? When you're working with image-based files, you have to go to the BobArt package. That's where you're going to have access to these. When you go to the BobArt Manager and you right-click, you're going to see Load Vector Files, okay? So from here, you can choose from the different vector files, EPS, AI, PDF. So we'll go ahead and grab this AI file, and then it'll take a second to load, and you can see we're able to load the AI file, okay? Now, so you have AI, EPS, and PDF. Those are the vector-based files that you are able to work with when you have the BobArt software. Now, things to watch out for. Just because it's a vector-based file does not mean that it's something that's usable. And a lot of times, depending on how the file was created, you can have layers and layers of geometry that you just really don't want, or that is really just not useful for you. Okay, so as an example, when I go to selection and I look at my colors, you can see that there are quite a few number of different colors. Even white is in this file here, okay? So you still need to go through a cleanup process. If you have an internal art department or are related or connected to the art department, you can ask them to change the file around and make it easier to work with. But it's really important to understand that just because your customer can provide you with a PDF or an AI or an EPS does not mean that you're just ready to go, okay? So in this example here, you know, we can select some of these different colors here. We can go ahead and delete them. We can select our color white. You know, maybe we'll change the color of it to gray so you can see how we could grab the center line for it, or we could grab the outside shape. So I just wanted to bring that up. Now, so that's something that you do have to pay attention to. The next thing that we want to talk about here has to do with what's the difference between vector-based files and raster-based files. Well, vector-based files are going to be made up of lines and arcs. If we look at our entity summary here, you'll see that there's 422 or 424 entities, 158 lines, and we have 266 splines, okay? So vector-based files are going to have lines, arcs, points, splines, that kind of geometry. Now, raster-based files, those are really going to just be pixels. They're pictures, and there's a lot of different types of pixels and pictures as far as file types that you can work with, okay? So where can you load in the raster-based files, okay? So the raster-based files you can load in from the BobArt Manager. You can choose Load Image, okay? And then you're going to have all of these different files that you can work with. One way you can do it, again, is from the BobArt Manager and load images. The other way you can do it is from Images and choose Load Images. Both methods will get you there, okay? So we have our raster-based files. Now, as far as the file types that are supported, there are a lot of different file types, JPEG, bitmaps, TIFFs, GIFs, PNGs, PSDs, and then like 30 other ones that I don't typically use, okay? So you have a lot of different options in here. I will tell you, a lot of times you're going to find JPEG images to be some of the best images to work with, and the image that you get can have an effect on the result that you're going to work with. But these are all the different types of files that you can work with, and you can also pull them from the BobArt Manager, Load Image, or you can pull them from the image, load image. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense there, which I'm sure it does. All right, so what do you have to watch out for in raster-based files? So let me go ahead and load up an image here. So I'm going to load up this image here, and it's going to come up on the screen, and then I'm going to zoom in, okay? So if we zoom in, you're going to notice that there is some blending on the edge of this part where it goes from black, and then it gets lighter all the way out to white, okay? The best files to convert, image-based files to convert, are ones that have a lot of contrast. That's really what you're looking for. A question did come in about the Bob Art Manager in BobCam. I'm not sure of the exact workflow of BobCam right off the top of my head, but it is very similar. It's a little bit different because you have to align to a sketch, and I may post a follow-up video for you on that or look back to some of our webinars to explain that, okay? So, all right, so again, raster-based images, they're pictures, they're made up of pixels, and what you're really looking for is good contrast, because the better the contrast is, the better the conversion process, okay? You can work with black and white photos, you can work with color photos, so it's definitely something that's important to understand is the quality of the image that you're working with. Now, another thing you may not know is you can also load in, so I'm going to go to images here and I'm going to go to load. You can also load in multiple files as well. So I'm going to grab this owls image. I'm going to come in here and grab, let's see here, there's like a tree branch, okay? And let me see here, I'm going to load in another one. So one of the things that's kind of cool about this is you can actually take different design elements that you may want to work with, different logos, frames, characters, or whatever it is, and you can load them all up into one file. And I feel that this is a very useful tool that you have. Now, right now, all of these images, they're loaded on top of each other, so you can go to each one and you can choose blank and unblank. And then what that will do is blank them out, and then you can choose to unblank. Again, this is a right click. So you right click and you can choose blank or unblank. This one here, this is, I believe this was the PNG file. If you look at the contrast of this image, you see a lot of different shades of black and gray. And you know, what the software's got to do is it's got to figure out how to join lines and arcs for that. So again, the better contrasting images do give you a better result. Now, one of the other things that we want to look at here is right now all of these images are kind of stacked on top of each other. So one of the things that you can do here is you can also change the origin of the image. So when the image comes in, it comes in right on 0. And then what you can do is you can change the origin. So we could move this maybe, you know, 10 inches over in X. We'll unblank this one. Now we can see that one. So we're going to go ahead and change the origin. We'll say minus 10 inches. And then we'll push that one that way. We got our tree branches here. We'll, you know, maybe change that one, and we'll say minus 10 in Y. And then we can open up this other one here and either leave it where it is, or what we can do is move it up as well. So we're going to move this up 10 inches in Y. Okay, so now we have all of these different images. We have multiple images, we can blank them, we can move them around so that we can start working with these raster files. Okay, so we covered change origin, we covered blank and unblank. Now, there's another thing that you can do with these images, like what if you want, like you can see this one smaller than this one. If you may want to edit that image. Now, generally, when you're editing, I recommend you do it in a program outside of BobCAD, and you do it before you get into BobCAD. But you can go to any of these images, and you can choose Edit using Paint. It'll open it up in Paint, and you can rotate and scale it, make it bigger, make it smaller. You can save the file, close it, and then it will update for those changes. Okay, so if you did want to make some adjustments to the image, you can do it while you're in the Bob Art software. Okay, so before I move on to the next one, is there any questions that have come up? Anything? Everybody good? Everything makes sense? Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is I do have a handout. Like I talked about earlier, there is a new product release that we have going on here today. Let me see. You guys should be getting a copy of it here. I just dropped the PDF so you can see a little bit about this information. This is a sign-making video training program that we're just releasing today. You guys are the first to see it. So I just wanted to make that available for you. Review that information. If you guys have any additional questions about the raster or vector files, ask it now. Otherwise, we're moving to the next topic. Looks like we're good. Okay, so the first topic we covered is working with image files. We brought in a variety of different image files. We talked about the different types of files, some of the benefits, some of the differences, things to look out for, and how to move them around on the screen, okay? Now we're going to talk about converting images, okay? So unlike the AI file, when we bring in the vector-based files, when we bring in the vector-based files, they're coming in lines or arcs, so we can go ahead and edit that and start working with it, okay? So that in itself is really simple, okay? We just need to check for double entities and clean up the geometry. When we're working with the image-based files, we need to convert it, okay? And there's two ways to convert it. One way is tracing, the other is vectorizing. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is tracing. Now you'll notice a little trick that I'm doing here. I'm doing this with my keyboard. This is I on your keyboard. If you press I, the image visibility goes away so you can see they're hidden. And then if you press I again, you'll see that they come back up. Okay, so this is a great way to load an image in the background, be able to trace around it and hide it, and I'll use that quite a bit. Now, the first group that I'm going to go to is this group over here, and what we want to talk about is using line sketch. So you load an image up in the background and you want to trace it. There's a bunch of different tools that you can use, but the one that we want to talk about to begin with is going to be line sketch, or maybe line continuous. These are very good tools to use in order to trace around the part. Now, if I go line sketch and I try to sketch on this geometry here, you can see how it's not really going where I want it to go. You can see how it's kind of snapping to some positions that are on the screen. And the reason why that's happening is my snap grid is currently turned on. Okay, so when you're tracing around these images, a lot of times it's going to make sense to turn off your snap grid. And if you guys aren't familiar with the snap grid, you'll find it in the lower portion of your screen. You can set an amount right here, and then just by clicking on the magnet, you can turn it on or off. Okay, so you can see how I was sketching around, kind of boxing this in. And you can see how it's kind of far off the geometry. Now if I do it with another one here, I'm going to use line continuous. So now you can see how I can click anywhere I want on the screen. And some of you may be wondering, well, why is he tracing around it the way that he is? And I'm going to get to that in just a second. So turning the snap grid on or off definitely will make a difference of where the geometry is located when you create these things, okay? Now, so line sketch is a really common way. I mean, again, if you want, a line along this area here, you could do line sketch. You could set it to horizontal or vertical. You can click a point and then you can just drag it out on the screen. You can hit I on your keyboard to hide the image to be able to see what you're doing, okay? Now, another thing that you can do as well, I just want to bring this up real quick, is when you go to the trim, you do have a trim screen function. This is another way where you can select on the line and be able to trim it out, or select on the line and be able to trim it back, okay? So that way you're not trimming it to something, you can just kind of change where that line is going, all right? Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is splines. Splines is probably one of my favorite tools that I use to trace around images. There's a bunch of different splines that you can work with. I'm going to choose the fit spline. Using the fit spline, I can plot out points on my screen to represent a curve or a shape that I'm trying to work with. Okay, so again, this is a pretty useful tool that will allow you to trace around images, and then you can use I on the keyboard in order to show the image or not. Give me just a second, guys. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so I on the keyboard to turn things on or off, and you can use splines to follow more curved shapes, okay? Another tool that you have is kind of once you get some of the base geometry down, what you're going to want to do is modify some of the geometry. So the way that you do that, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. We're going to talk about drag corner. Drag corner is a great way for you to grab a corner of your geometry and then be able to move it. So this way you can start moving your geometry in to the shapes geometry as such. Okay, so again, this is a quick tool that you can use to grab the intersection of geometry and move it to where you want it to be. Okay, another one that we have here is called deform. So you go to deform, and what this allows you to do is to take a straight line and turn it into a curved line. Okay, so this is another very useful tool that you have if you're trying to convert some images that you can use. You can start out with lines and then you can start deforming. Now I know some of you may be thinking, well, why not just draw a radius? Well, you can draw a radius too. You can sketch one up and get it kind of close. Sometimes that's more difficult to do than other times, but so it's just different tools that you can use for this. So drag corner, deform. Now the other thing with deform is I can go into this spline here. If I go deform, and then I can click on the spline and I can start dragging the spline into its shape as well. So that's another very useful tool in order when you're converting images that you can use for that. All right. Now the other one I want to talk about is entity modify. So if you have a line or arc that's on the screen, you can select that line or arc. Okay, and then you can go to entity modify, and then you can change its radius amount, its center position, and this works for single entities. This again is a very useful tool. The other one you can use it for is with splines. If you do entity modify, all the control points come up so that you can pull on these control points, and again it's just another way in order to modify your curved profiles. Okay. All right, so that's what we're looking at on that. Is there any questions about tracing, some of the tricks that we have for tracing? Anything that you guys think of, just go ahead and write it in the question box there. These are very common tools. I'm very familiar with using these tools, and really using this workflow, there isn't really much that you can't do, okay? So in other words, like if I go over to this shape here, and I start looking at the splines, this is probably a better example of using the spline. I can come through, you know, and kind of click through close to where I want it to be. Then I can come back and select the spline and go to entity modify, and then I can use my control points in order to get this closer into the profile that I want to work with. And you can zoom in or zoom out. You'd kind of get a knack for how many points you need to create and when you need to create them. But again, this is a good way to take more complicated shapes and be able to generate splines through them. Okay, if we go over to this section here, same type of scenario. It might be really difficult to you know, kind of create a series of arcs for that. So this is another great example of using the splines, so you can kind of click them out and be able to follow over the profile. Okay, so tracing is more of a manual based process, but a lot of times you're going to find that this is very useful in order to get some more complicated geometry or just portions of your geometry. Okay, is there a simple select image and trace, aka simple trace? We don't call it simple trace, but that is the next topic, so that's a great segue, Curtis. The tracing methods are manual, where you load an image up and you use your general wireframe tools and you trace over it. The next one is the vectorization, and what the vectorization is going to do is an automatic process. Okay, so any of the images that we have within the tree, you can go to one of those images and you can right click on it and then go to vectorize, and this will bring up the raster to vector conversion or the vectorization process. Okay, Robert had a question. Can you add additional points to an existing spline? You cannot add additional control points to a spline. You can break a spline into multiple points, but you can't add additional points to a spline. Anthony had a question. Can you use line join on different splines and lines? You can use line join on the end of any endpoint. So, or I think snap points too. So that's what we're looking at there. Now, so again, manual process is tracing, automatic process is vectorization, okay? When you get in here, there's a few key areas that you want to look at. You have a threshold value here, and the threshold value really is going to depend on the image. The technical description of this is the threshold value that you set will determine some parts of your design that are white, and some parts of your design that are black, and it's kind of like a contrast tool, and depending on where you have this set, it changes your image depending on the contrast of your image. Okay, you'll also notice there's a multicolor strategy, so if you have multiple colors, you can go in and pick 1, 2, 3, or all the way up to 64 different colors. We're going to talk about the vectorized parameters here. There's an accuracy setting based on pixels, remove chains less than, with arcs, and then we'll look at our image size. Okay, so if we go to this image here, you can see that we have really, this is a JPEG, and it's really a nice image. We're going to go to the image, we're going to choose vectorize. There's very little that we need to do in this dialog other than click OK. And then what we'll see is our result. And if we come in here, you can see that we have really clean corners. We have a good representation of the geometry. There's a little bit of a facet here that you're seeing. I don't know if it's displaying or not. The facet would be based off your wireframe rendering. If you increase that, then you'll see your arcs smooth out. Okay, so that job went really well off of the JPEG image, and you can kind of see how it's approximating all these points here, and it's done a really good job of it. Now, if we come over to this other frames here, which is a little bit different, this one was the PNG, okay, and if you look at the starting geometry that we're working with, we get in real close, and you can kind of see, you know, there's not as good of contrast with it. When we come in and vectorize this using a similar setting, and we'll say OK, and we zoom out here and we look at our geometry, you can see that in some areas it gets a little, it's not quite as smooth as it was in the other example. Okay, so again, this is based on the contrast of the image. Now, depending on what you're doing, like if you're V-carving or embossing, a lot of times those little details, it's not really going to make a difference on your finished project. I know I did a sign. My sister's a real estate agent here in the Tampa Bay area, Abbey Road Realty, and so I did a sign for her office, and I just took her logo off her website and vectorized it. It looked a little rough, but when we cut it on the router, it was no big deal at all. Okay, so talking a little bit about the threshold, we talked about the automatic vectorization. Let's look at an image where the threshold shows up a little bit more. So we're going to go to the owls here. We'll go to vectorize, and this is where you can really see how by adjusting the threshold value makes a big impact on our images. Okay, so as we bring it down into a lower number, we lose more of the image. As we're into a higher number, we're going to get all black, and then eventually we lose it all together. Okay, so this allows us on this multicolor routine here, or multicolor image, we can come in and adjust this, and you can see the result that we're getting from that. Okay, so if we zoom in, you can see this very pixelated. This is actually a very small file, and you can kind of see the result that we're getting based off of it. Okay. All right, so that's a little bit about the threshold value. The next thing that I want to talk about is the multicolor. So with our owls here, we have a bunch of different colors we can work with. So we're going to go to multicolor. We're going to drop it down to maybe 3 colors, and we're going to just choose the color brown, and then we'll choose OK. That's another way to isolate what geometry we want to work with and what geometry we don't want to work with. Now, a lot of you may be saying, well, this doesn't really look like the smoothest interpretation of that image. And you're right, it's not necessarily the smoothest interpretation of this image, but if you look at what we're starting with, it's actually doing a really good job based off the quality of the image, okay? Now, some of you may be saying, well, what can you do in order to adjust the quality of the vectorization? And actually, there's a lot of things that you can do. Number one, you can start with a better image. You don't always have that option, though. Maybe you don't have an art department. Maybe you... let's see. Can you please show how you changed the wireframe? Steve, if you're asking about the deform function, I'll get into that in just a second. You know, maybe you don't have an art department. Maybe the customer doesn't have an art department. If you have an art department, you go to them, you work with them, you get back a better result. If you're grabbing an image off the internet, you know, and it's just poor quality, or from the customer and it's just poor quality, you kind of may manually trace some of the image, or what you'll end up doing is auto-vectorizing some of it and using a combination. Okay, so I do want to talk about let me go to another multicolor. This one has a few less colors. We're going to go to vectorize. We're going to go to multicolor. We're going to drop this down to 3 colors. Maybe we just want the brown. We click OK, and that gives us the brown, more like the branch versus the leaves. Okay, so again, showing you how you can isolate different areas. We can go back to vectorize. Maybe we just want the leaves. We can go to green, and you see in this case here, we're just getting the leaves. Now, someone did say, okay, well, let's say you auto-vectorize it and you want to clean it up. What are some of the options that you have? Okay, this one's a little rough in here, but you might want to smooth it out. Again, you can go to utilities. You have drag corner and deform that you can use to modify that profile. So to go to deform, you can click on this arc and bring it in. And one of the things that I can say about the Bobcad's vectorized profiles is these are closed chains, and then they're made up of larger geometry segments. So there's not millions of little tiny segments. These are not very heavy files. These are very usable files, whether it's engraving or whether it's continuing on with more of your 3D design. Okay, so we talked about multicolor. Really what we want to get into now is more of the accuracy. So we have a couple of different examples. This example looks really good. This example doesn't necessarily look as good. When we get over here, this one looks like it could use a lot of work. And then when we get down here, you can see, depending on what section we have, it's really not so bad. Okay, and when we look at the images, you can see there's a lot of high contrast. When we look at some of the other images, they don't have as high of contrast. So what can you do to clean up the vectorization? Well, one of the things that you can do is, let's go to frames 2 and zoom in here. One of the things you can do is you can adjust the accuracy settings. Now, to be honest, for a long time, I never messed with these numbers, okay? When we get into the vectorized parameters and accuracy, I never really messed with these numbers because I guess I would just manually trace it because it was easy for me and quick for me to do. But with working with this presentation today, I really went in and dug in a little bit deeper. So this is what I found. When you drop this down to a smaller number, what you're going to get is a bunch of staircases. Okay, so this is really going in and following that profile quite a bit. All right, and that is definitely not usable of geometry, unless if you're going for like what is that that video game everybody does nowadays, the block video game. But anyways, I can't think of it. No, not Candy Crush. Minecraft, yeah, unless you're going for a Minecraft, yeah, there, thanks, Steve. Minecraft type style, that's probably not what you're looking for. If we come in here and we go to vectorize and then we bump this number up, like I'm going to make it a 5, and we say okay, what you're going to see there is it definitely smooths it out, and you're going to see these are like really big segments. See how that's one arc? This is one line here. This is one arc, okay? So there's somewhere in the middle where it's really faceted to too smooth. And I kind of look at it, I don't know what the actual technical definition of what it's doing there, other than it does smooth it out, and you can find a threshold, you know, which will work for you. So, you know, I've been finding that like about 1.5 a lot of times will give me a pretty decent result, but again, it will depend on the image. The other thing you can do here besides adjusting the accuracy is you can go in and you can say remove chains less than however many pixels, you know, so you could make it, if you make it less than 5 pixels, it removes chains that have less than 5 pixels, and then you can go up in that as well. And if you work with this a little bit, you know, I think you'll find that you can really come in and dial in a lot of images that may have been a little more difficult to work with, okay? The other thing you're going to notice here when we go to vectorize is you have with arcs or without arcs. I generally recommend with arcs. If you go without arcs, it tends to really make it more faceted because now it's just joining with a bunch of line segments versus using arcs, okay? So we had our accuracy settings. 0.8 is the default. You can go up or down and see the result. You have remove chains less than, which allows you to get rid of smaller segments of geometry that could be problematic. And then you have with arcs, and with arcs will allow you to smooth things out. Again, if we go over to the owl here and we go to vectorize, you know, we can adjust our tolerance here, you know, and you'll see that it really has a pretty impact. It's pretty impactful on what you're working with. I mean, there's quite a difference between that one, and if we come back and we make this, no, 0.8, and this one, you can see it's quite a bit more faceted. You can see these smaller sections in here and everything else. When we come in and vectorize it again, let's really zoom up here and recompute this, you can see it really does smooth things out for you. Okay, so definitely work around with that a little bit. The last thing that I want to cover with vectorization is you can make, when you're vectorizing, you can make the image larger or smaller. So if we go to the owls here and we go to vectorize, you will see this image size. It shows you what the actual size is. You can type in the size that you want it to be, and then what it will do when it vectorizes it is it will make it bigger, or you can make it smaller. So that is a good way to do it as well. Is there a limit in sheet or drawing size that it can be? Can I do a 100-foot part? I don't know of any limit in the size that you can do to vectorize, but you know, if it's a 100-foot part and you have, you know, a bunch of segments, smaller segments, it could be a really large file. It could be very resource intensive on your computer. So that's just something that you need to think with. Other than that, I know of no restriction based on file size. All right, very good. So that's going to cover that. Is there any other questions that we have there? No? If we do about vectorization, go ahead and bring it up now. Otherwise, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is V-carving. Okay. All right, sounds good. Let's see. One came in. I know we have a parallel line at a distance. How about arcs or radius lines at a distance? No, it doesn't, like, you can do an arc snap, so you could snap to a position, you know, but if you're saying I want the center of this to be a distance away, you know, maybe you might do an arc sketch and then do a fixed amount, and maybe you'll put it there, and then once it's dropped, you could move it. You could say, all right, let's go -1 inch from there, and then it will move that center. So that's kind of how you would do that. Let me go through that again real quick, because that might be a useful tool. We're going to go arc sketch. Okay, we're going to do a fixed amount for our radius. Okay, we're going to snap it to a location so it snaps right on the center of that arc. And then what we want to do is tell it to go a certain distance, right? So then from here we could say, all right, go plus 1 inch, tab in order to have it come in there, and you can see now it's 1 inch away from there. So you can see it's right on that edge. And I'm in a preview mode right now. Once I could either continue to add to that value, or what I can do is lock it in. So if I spacebar and lock it in, it's going to drop right there. Okay, Martin, does that answer your question? It looks like a very usable solution for you there. All right, so I'm talking about V-carve at this point because the Bob Art package does include V-carving, and I think that's a big part of why people use it. V-carving for signage. I also have people doing like dies and stamps with the V-carve toolpath as well. So, you know, even though I'm showing more of a sign type example here, it can be used for other applications as well, like stamping dies. Now, so V-carving. So we got a job set up here. In here, we're going to right click, and you're going to notice Mill V-carve is one of your toolpath options. So we're going to go ahead and click that. From here, we're going to select our geometry. We're going to go ahead and select our geometry, and I'm going to select Team Owl. Kind of like Team Owl, but with an O, WL. All right, so we'll select that. The next thing that we really want to talk about, like, and it can be a little confusing here as far as like the depth value, you know, as far as what that is, but really what's going to happen is the toolpath is going to go until it intersects with each other. That's how it works with the V-carve. We're just working on the letters. I do recommend you use the largest V-tool you can, especially for wood-based applications. The other thing that I recommend with that as well is that for your V-tool depth of cut, that you make that as large as you can. So this way it takes the least amount of passes in order to create the V-carve routine. So we set that up, we hit compute, and then here you can see the toolpath. And again, what it's going to do is it's going to, where it is a narrow space, it will be shallow, and as it goes deeper, as it's a wider space, it will go deeper. That's kind of how the algorithm works there. That is the concept behind the V-carving. You will see that it will go down the corners, it goes up along the skinny area, you know, it goes around and cleans it up. We can run this through a simulation in just a second, but that is the basics of V-carving. You can use V-carving for just in between two areas as well. It's not limited to just text, okay? Again, the depth is going to be based on, you know, the intersection of the profile. So if you have a greater area, you know, it will go a lot further down. All right, so it's just something to be aware of there. So we have some basic V-carving. Something I want to touch on real quick, which is good to know, if you do have some text on the screen, I don't recommend you explode it. Or if you do explode it, make sure to make a copy of your text so that way you have the original. The reason why I bring this up is you can go in and you can adjust your fonts to your text when it hasn't been exploded. So you can come in and you can get more of like a scripted type text here. Again, you can select it, you can change the text. You may say, oh, I changed the text, it's bigger now, so you may change what the height of it is as well. So this is an easy way to swap out your text. You can go ahead and reselect your geometry, you can recompute, and then you can see it's updated for a different style font. So that's just a quick tip on V-carving with letters. Let's go ahead, I'll run it, I'm gonna run it through a simulation here. Just so we can kind of see what's going on. Again, I recommend you turn all this stuff off because unless you're using it, why have it on? We'll come in here, we're going to just press play. We'll have it run through and you can see really what it's doing, the difference of the font. Now, a lot of people have questions about fonts like, Al, where'd you get that font? Most of these fonts were installed on my computer. Some of them I grabbed off of our network drives here. It's true type fonts and open type fonts that you can work with. Most fonts work really well. There are some fonts that are a little problematic just because of how the font is itself. So if you're having problems with with a particular font, sometimes it makes sense to switch over to another font, okay? So when you take an image, you convert it, you did that with Bob Art, you know, or a combination of Bob Art and your own geometry. You can come in and use your V-carving. V-carving for letters or shapes, this is a really good way to attack different things. The other thing you can do here is, let me remove this, and I'm just going to select the inside shape and our two font sets, and I'm going to edit this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add tapered pocketing to it as well. And the reason why I do this is I want to remove all the area between the outside shape and the text, and it's better to use an end mill to remove the bulk of that material. So I can go in and set an end mill. I can set its depth parameters. I can set my V tool, and I can set its depth parameters. I can go ahead and compute that. And then what this is going to do is it's going to cut down to the depth that I set here. So when you're just doing V-carving, it's going to be based on the width. The depth is going to be based on the width of the letter or the boundary you've selected. When you're using the tapered pocketing, it's going to be based on the total depth that you set. So we can set this to 1/4 inch and update it, and then that will push that up. And what you're going to see is it's going to remove around all of that text. We'll launch simulation again real quick, kind of see what's going on. There are some things that happen when you use this end mill. It's going to rough out the majority of the material, and then we're going to go back and we're going to clean this up with our V tool, right? So there is a gap between where the end mill went or could fit, and then also where the V tool went and could fit. So you have some different settings within the software for cleanup, and I'm going to show you what those are as soon as this gets done. The other thing you can do too, I don't know if you guys saw the custom tool profile. Most of these tools have a small flat that's on the bottom. The virtual tool that we create does not. You can model a tool that has a flat on the bottom or create a custom profile for it, and then that way you get a better idea of what's going on. So the cleanup stuff that I'm talking about is in this section here. You can see there's some leftover material here and here. You'll also see that material left over here and here, so and in through this section. So you have some options to go in there and to clean that up. If we close this out and we edit this feature, we can look at our V-tool parameters. You'll see V-tool cleanup parameters. You can make this a smaller number, and that will go and clean up the corners. This one here is the step over option, so you can make this a smaller number so it steps over more when it has an area that it needs to generate. So if we recompute this, you're going to see this area is filled in now to go and clean up where that extra material was. You can see over here and over here, a combination of those two options, both the cleanup and the step over. So hopefully that makes sense. Can this be used with a CO2 laser? Larry, I mean, V-carving? I don't think so. You'd have to give me a better idea of what you want to start with and how you want to use it, and we could do a one-on-one or something about that later, okay? All right, so tapered pocketing we covered. You pick your tool, you set your depth of cut, you set your step over, and then we also talked about the cleanup stuff. All right, so that gets us through V-carving. If there's any questions about that, go ahead and ask it now. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the emboss model creation with the Bob Art. Any questions? Last chance. All right, moving forward. Now, all right, so what I want to do from here is let me go ahead and just delete this feature out of the tree. Let me bring this back to this. All right, so the Bob Art software, one of the things that it's going to have is the design elements, okay? So we talked about working with graphics files, vector-based and raster-based. We talked about converting them, tracing them, or vectorizing. We talked about V-carving, letters and pockets and shapes and things like that. We also talked about, well, now we're talking about the 3D design. Like, how do you take sketches and convert them into 3D designs, okay? And that's where you get into this emboss model section. Okay, so in the emboss model section, This is where you're going to get a bunch of embossing tools, and there's a bunch of different kinds, and really what the workflow is here. So the first area that we really want to talk about has to do with the emboss model. Okay, so you have create, modify, stock. So how you kind of want to think about this is we're creating a sheet of paper, and that sheet of paper we're going to push up and push down on in order to create the shapes that we want. Rob had a question about, can you engrave over a surface? Yes, you can engrave over a surface using like project curves or some of the other 3-axis wireframe. You could use project curves. If you're asking, Rob, can you V-carve, can you take a V-carve toolpath and project that on the surface? No, you cannot do that at this time. Larry had a question, can you create a custom profile, router bits, and BodCAD? Yes, you can, Larry. There's a quick tip video that's on our YouTube channel and also on our Facebook page. If you want to learn more about it, I recommend you watch that video. Okay, moving forward. So we have create or modify stock. When we enter this area here, there's a couple of things that we need to talk about. You have your origin, where the origin of the stock is. You have your model size, what the size of the stock is. You have resolution, which is kind of like the accuracy, remove emboss, color, appearance, some wrapping stuff. What we want to focus on is just this origin and model size to begin with, and also the resolution. So just like we talk about with 3D toolpaths, you don't want to run like a super high resolution when you're proving out your toolpaths because it just takes longer to calculate. Well, it's the same way with your Bob Art surfaces. If you have a high resolution, it just takes longer to calculate. So I do recommend you drop this down to a lower number to prove out the design, and then once you get closer, you're ready to machine, or to create a component or whatever you might be doing, then you bump up the resolution to smooth things out, okay? The origin is going to be the bottom left-hand corner is 0, 0. If we make this a 10 by 10, what we're going to see is that this box comes up here and it's not orientated to the geometry. Now, we generally draw geometry on center so you can take advantage of mirror and rotate. So you can either choose to move the design elements, the wireframe, to the surface, or you can move the surface to the wireframe. Either way, in our case, what we're going to do is just go back to create, modify, stock. We're going to come in here, we're going to say -5, -5, and what that will do is center up our stock geometry. Now our stock geometry is a flat plane like I talked about, and what we're going to do is start building up or dropping down different features. The first group of embossing features are embossing features, okay? So when we get into the tree here, okay, you have emboss regular, emboss swept, emboss 2-rail sweep. Okay, so these are your embossing features. These are the most common ones that you use. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So we're going to do emboss regular. We'll load that into the tree. We get into an interface here. We can name it. We can change the color of it. This view that you're looking at is a cross section. Okay, so you can use a line, you can use an arc, concave, convex, ellipse, and then also a spline, and then you can also use a custom profile, so you can draw and create your own custom profile and be able to use that as your cross section. Okay, for our example, we're going to just do a line. We're going to say, height of 1/4 inch, and then we're going to say a slope angle of 90. Okay, the application type is going to be add, and we're going to choose OK. All right, so I need to select the geometry, so I'll chain select my outside profile here, hit my space bar, and then once you've created a feature, an embossing feature, right, you edit its parameters, you selected the geometry, then you need to compute it, basically, kind of like you compute toolpath, except it's regenerate here, so we regenerate, and then what that will do is give us this shape, which we went from a flat plane to one that's sticking up in Z. Okay. All right. So that's an add example. What I'm going to do is I'm going to edit it. I'll make it a different color so it stands out a little bit. So we'll make it blue. Click OK. You can see that it's blue. We can come in here and edit, and we can edit things like the height of it. We can make it taller. We could make it 1 inch. We could edit the angle. Maybe it's on a 45. You know, it's really simple. You just kind of edit the parameters, and then when you want to see the change, you regenerate, and then it changes. So this put it on a 45 and went up. Now you can go up or you can go down. If we edit this shape, instead of adding, we could say subtract, and we can choose OK. And then we come back over here and do regenerate. You can see now that it's gone down. So you can go up or you can go down. Will you be doing an emboss from image? Bob, I'm not planning on doing an emboss from image, though I could take the owl's image if I wanted and emboss from it, so maybe we'll get to that. Trying to get through all the topics here, so if that is something that you want to see, we can talk about that. All right, so you can go up, you can go down, okay? There are a few other types, application types. You have up and down, so add and subtract. Then you have merge high and merge low. And merge high and merge low comes into effect when you have other embossments, and either you want to add to the embossment or subtract from the embossment, or only merge at the high points or only merge at the low points. Okay, so a couple of different options there. We're going to just stick with, we're going to go to an add. We're going to set this to a 1/4 inch. We're going to say this is 90 degrees, or we'll set it to a 1/2 inch, 90 degrees, and we'll say OK. All right, we're going to regenerate, and you can see we have this going up. What an E on your keyboard is the hotkey for hiding the embossment, so you can use E. There is a question about a sweep, and I am going to show a sweep in this example. All right, so E will hide your embossment. Okay, so that way you can get to the wireframe, because I moved the emboss model up so we weren't able to see. What we're going to do is add another regular embossment. This one is going to be a line again. The height is going to be a 1/4 inch. This is going to be 90. We're going to do a subtract, and then we'll change our color. We'll make it green. Say OK, OK. Select our geometry. Regenerate our path. E to show it. So we went up and then we went down. Pretty simple. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and edit this feature here. There are some things that I wanted to talk about down here, these fast edits here, like what is a base height, Z scale. You know, you have scale in X and Y and scale in Z. Those, I think, should make pretty good sense. I don't know that scale in X and Y really did anything for me right there. I think scale in Z should make it smaller or higher. The scale factor, yeah, that brought it up. I generally don't use the scale factor so much, but the one that I will use more often is this base height. And what that base height means is where is it starting from when it's doing the embossment. And you can move it up or down. This is actually a very useful feature when working with text and things like that. But before I skip ahead, we did one regular embossment to add. We did another regular embossment to subtract. We're going to do another regular embossment. We're going to do a line. That's fine. This one's going to be a subtract. We'll use a different color here. We'll do a color like that. All right, E to blank everything out. I'm going to select the text here, spacebar, regenerate to update for the changes, E for embossment. Okay, so I'm building up and down my design. I'm going up and I'm going down. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense there for you guys. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this one here from a subtract, and I'm going to make this one an add, and I'm going to choose OK and then regenerate. Okay, so now you can see these letters have gone up. Okay, but I want to use that base height where I want to make it start from a higher position than the surface that is there. So I can go edit, base height, 0.25, click OK, regenerate this, and now you can see how they go up. Okay, so that's the purpose of that base height. When I didn't use the base height, what was happening is it was embossing from the green surface up based on the regular emboss value that I had put in there. When I use my base height, what I do is I say move up off of the green surface by user defined value and then emboss from there. So it's a very useful tool to customize your design. So that's just a quick demonstration on that. This one we're going to go back to subtract. So hopefully you guys have a good understanding of emboss regular and adding or subtracting. I don't know, it looks like it doesn't, now it's going way deeper than what it should be. So let me just delete that guy real quick. Now, some of the other things that you can do here is you can suppress features, you know, like turning operations off in the CAM tree, same type of thing. You can suppress features, so this way you can turn elements of your design off and you can turn them back on later. If you go to any feature, you just right click and you can do suppress. You also will see save as component STL, and this is where you start talking about using parts of your design in other parts of your design. Okay, so we talked about add and subtract. Really, those are more of the basic ones. What I want to do from here is get into a little more complex of a design. So we're going to go to the owl here. All right, so this is the same owl that we had worked on before. If we go to our image file, I feel like it should show up here somewhere. I may have pulled it out. It was the same image that we had used before. Okay, we're going to go through the same steps here. We're going to do our stock. So this is going to be an 8x8. And we can see that it covers that area. Okay, now what I've done is I've put all of my sketches or my wireframe on different groups here. I'm going to drop some of these off the screen so we can look at one at a time. So this one here, this is a two-rail sweep. Two-rail sweep. Okay, so this is another kind of embossing tool. So regular is definitely the most popular, but the two-rail sweep also is a very useful tool. So we're going to do 2 rails. Again, we'll set a color that we're working with. Okay, this is going to be an add. There's some different options in here. There's some really cool stuff that you can do. We're going to just stick with the default settings and click OK. We have 2 rails to select, so we'll select the first one, which is going to be this one. We'll come over and select the second one, which is going to be that one. All right. Now, one of the things that we do need to pay attention to is the start point. You notice how this start point is up here and that start point is down there. We do want them facing the same direction. Okay, so you can see how they're both going the same direction. So there's my 2 rails. Okay, and then what I can do here is select my cross section. So my cross section is kind of like the front view, and my 2 rails are like the top view. So when I generate this embossment, what it's going to do is it's going to dome that up just like you see there. And I would say 2-rail sweep is definitely the most useful tool for using your to create more 3D curves. A lot of the blended type shapes that you would want to get into, you would use the 2-rail sweep for. Larry, the lithopane based off embossment feature is super easy. It takes 2 seconds to really show. So no big deal. We can get into that later. I think you're over at the Bobcat Texas user group, so I'll try to post something up in there later. I know we're at the 2 o'clock mark, and a lot of people tend to get back to work. If you can stick around, great. There's definitely a couple of more topics that I want to go through. Probably about another 10 or 15 minutes to get through it. If you got to go, I understand. I appreciate you spending some time with me here today. All right, so we got our 2-rail sweep here, and kind of to help illustrate this a little bit better, what I'm going to do is deform. So I'm going to come in here and deform this profile. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit, and I'll reselect that and then regenerate here, and you can see how that flattens it. Okay, so this is, like I said, the front view of the embossment, and these 2 would be more so the top view. Okay, so we got one there. That's one part of our owl that we're making here. The next thing that I do here is I want to, like, if we look at it, it's got this curved shape to it on the top. So what I want to do is cut that part away. So how do I cut that part away? It looks like I do a regular merge low. Okay, so we're going to come in here. We're going to do a regular. This is going to be a line. I'm going to go 90. I'm not sure. We'll make this like 1 inch. That's fine. We're going to select our profile. Okay, so we select our profile here, and then again, our application isn't going to be an ad. We'll do an ad first, and you'll see that it goes up like this, and you can see when it runs into this green surface here. Let me change this green surface. When it runs into this green surface here, it also goes up in that area. So that's when you do an add, if there's other embossments, it adds to those embossments as well. Okay, so really what we want to do here, if we do like a subtract and we say, and we regenerate that, then it's going down, and yeah, that accomplishes the result that we're looking for, but it also creates this big pocket back here, and we don't want that either. And even when you do the subtract, you can still see the embossed curve on the bottom is still there, right? So that's where you start getting into these merge low. So when I do merge low and then I regenerate this, that's able to cut away that profile there, but not go up or go down. It allows me to cut off the top of it is basically what's going on there. Okay, so let me go ahead and delete this guy here for a second. I'm going to load another one in. So we're going to do regular, we're going to do line 90 degrees. This is going to be merge low. We'll select our profile and then we'll regenerate, and you can see how this cuts this out. I know it looks like I don't have my height quite high enough, so let's make this a little bit bigger. Click OK, regenerate, and you can see that I'm doing something wrong. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, but I got something wrong here. All right, well, I set it to 0 and then that brought it down, so that works. Okay, so merge low, I guess the height would be the height in which it's merging low. So as I set this, as I set it to a 1/4 inch, it was merging at a 1/4 inch height from that, from the 0 embossment. See how it's merging at a 1/4 inch? If I come in here and I set it to 1 inch, then it's going up even higher. So when I regenerate this, it's going up even higher, so we're losing it all together. When I set this to 0, it's saying merge low at 0, then it's cutting it away like I would want it to. And you can see I'm getting that dome section there, okay? So hopefully that explains what's going on there. The next one we're going to do is go over to these other sections here. These are, let's see here. Let's just do, I feel like these are two rail sweeps, but I don't have the other geometry. So let me just do a regular. We're going to do maybe something like an ellipse, like this. We're going to do an add. We'll select this one and that one and regenerate. And then you can see, again, this is another scenario where the add, it's going up on the original 2-rail sweep surface, right? So we don't want to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to edit this, and this is going to become a merge high, which means it will only show up at the high points. So we'll say OK, and we'll regenerate, and you can see now those are going down inside of there. And that's actually a really good point. When you look at our geometry layout here, you can see these boundaries are made inside of it. They're not right to the edge of it. And the reason why they're made inside is so when we do our embossment, we can use a merge hide and have it hide inside of the body versus having like a gap or an edge right there. So hopefully that, that makes sense there for you guys as well. All right, so let's move on to the next one. The next one here, this is, these are going to be regular embossments. What do I have it set to? Regular merge high. So we're going to do regular, there's going to be some radius amount here. We're going to do merge high. We'll click OK, and we're going to select one of them and then do regenerate. So some of you may be like, well, why are you doing just one of them? Well, the thing is let's go ahead and select multiple ones. So this is another thing to watch out for. If I select a few of these together like this and I regenerate, you're going to find that where they intersect, there's going to be a gap there. Now this is a smaller detail, so it's not because the resolution is a little bit lower, you're not seeing quite the same, but you'll see that there's a gap there. Depending on the design, it may be okay. Let me just up my res just a little bit here and regenerate. So you can see how the gap, where the intersection is between the two curves here, this intersection, you're going to end up having a gap in that area. Okay, so if you wanted them to show up fully, what you would end up doing is selecting, you know, the ones that aren't intersecting and regenerate, and then now you can see those, and then you can do the two that are in the middle, so that, and maybe you have them go up or whatever the case might be. Okay, so that's another thing to consider when you're dealing with geometry. You want to make sure that if there's intersecting geometry, it will change what your embossment result will be. All right, so let's go back. Let's see what the next one is here. These are going to be some cutouts. So when we do these, we're going to do, what does it say? Regular, subtract. So we're going to do subtract with a K. And we'll go convex. Well, so we're going to do it this way. We can adjust this up or down as we want. We'll say OK. We're going to select. And sometimes this is confusing for people. So let's go ahead and pull this up and regenerate. And then here you can see we get a nice, nice cutaway that is happening here, right? So some of you may say, well, why wouldn't you just do, instead of a convex, just do a concave? And the concave is going to give you a different result. It's definitely not the result that you're looking for. You could, I guess we could do a add. You could do an add with a concave and regenerate. That would give you, again, a different result. So even though you want to go down, you want to cut it away, you're going to find that using a convex and using a subtract is going to give you that recess that we're looking for there. So we'll go ahead and regenerate that. Okay, so we're going up, we're going down, different steps that we're taking here. Let's see, these, I think I just build them up, so I'm going to do another add. So you come in and you do regular, something like this, you know, and then you do an add, and we'll select these two. Okay, regenerate. Okay, so that's giving you an add, and we'll add them up and subtract. I don't think, well, I guess there was one question about the sweep. So how do you do a sweep? So I'm going to just jump ahead to this one here. Again, you're going to see a series of arcs. Now, the thing with the sweep that comes up, Chuck, if you're still with me, the thing with the sweep that confuses people, and I do understand, is when you do a sweep, it actually like wraps around it, okay? So we're going to do an arc here. We're going to do an add. We'll say okay. You know, I'm going to select these single entities here as such, and you're going to see how what they do, it like the radius of it goes all the way around, so it sweeps around it. It's not like a, you know, it only does half of it. It does all of it. It goes all the way around. So what you end up doing is just dropping down to like a smaller radius here, and you can see I get the result that I'm looking for. Now that's with a closed profile or a single open profile. If you had a closed profile, what's going to end up happening is it's going to go around it. So let me go back to a top view here. Let me grab one of those and regenerate this here. And then here you can see how it ends up, you know, creating a full shape around that. Okay, so sweeps are actually pretty cool, but I think the way that you're intending on using it was not what you were expecting. Are you using the spacebar to OK your selection? Is that a shortcut? Yes, that is a shortcut, Suzanne. Suzanne. And instead of hitting right-click OK, you can hit your spacebar as a shortcut for right-click OK. All right, so again, the basic design elements are here. You can see how you can build this up. What I'm going to do now is just open up the guy. Again, this is just an owl picture. My wife really likes owls, so you know, this is what we came up with here. Going through all the steps that I've shown you here, this is how I was able to create this design. You can see all the different ones that I've done. Same thing that we talked about here. So if I can do it, you can do it kind of thing. Again, this is at a lower resolution right now. If we really want to pump it up, like maybe if we're going to get ready to cut or get ready to save it out, you just increase that resolution and it will really smooth things out for you. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Merge high, merge low, XY scale, Z scale, base height. All right, so these are your regular embossments or emboss features. The other thing that I want to talk about here is when you get in here, besides this first three group, you also have emboss from. So you can emboss from an image where you can use the grayscale of the image to do an embossment. You can do from the surface or solid. So you could use a surface or solid as base geometry and then emboss on top of it. You can do from a Bob Art surface. So if you already have a BBAS file, you could work off of one of those to combine components. You have emboss from components, so that's another thing, and probably really where I want to go to next, because from image, just to, let's go back for a second. So we'll go to here. We're going to do emboss from image. We can grab one of our image files here. What it's going to end up doing is using the grayscale of the image. It will, even if it's color, it will turn it into grayscale. This is going to come from 0. This is a 3, so let's do 3.75533 divided by 2, 1.8766. We'll just do, I'm just going to center it on the design. So that should be fine. This should be fine. That should be fine. We'll say OK. And there you can see just embossing from that 2D color image, we're able to generate this texture inside of our design. Okay, so embossing from, you're choosing something that you're going to emboss from. So that was from an image. Again, you can emboss from a surface or solid that you can have on the screen already, a previous BBAS file. But really emboss from component is what I want to leave off at. It's 216. Most of you guys have stuck around, so that's really good. So emboss from component is the last thing. So as you create your designs here, your design elements, by pushing up and pulling down, I mean, you could create owls and light bulbs and all kinds of different shapes and objects. You just take your time, one element at a time. You want to be able to reuse this in future projects. It's extremely important, very useful tool that it really will get you the most out of what you're doing. Okay, so the way you do that is you go to your emboss model and you're just going to do save whole emboss as an STL. Okay, component as a component STL. You give it an accuracy, you save it to a directory. Now, before you do that, there is one step that you have to take. When you go to your emboss model, this remove non-emboss area, what that will do is get rid of the flat surface that is outside of your embossed area, this whole sheet here. Okay, so what it does is it trims it so you get just the component. Okay, and then, like I said, you can use that component in your design. So if we go back over to here, let's see this one, instead of doing emboss from an image, we can say, you know what, let's do emboss from a component. So we're going to right click here, we're going to do emboss from component. We can grab our owl component. Our little dialog box is going to come up. This is going to give us the ability to center our image, so we can bring this over. We can bring it down. The other thing we want to do is we want to scale this down because obviously it's bigger than our frame. So maybe we'll make it, 4 inches. And again, we'll just move it until it's in position and we're happy with it. The other thing that you're going to look at here is suppressing the Z depth as well. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Okay, suppressing the Z depth because, you do got to cut this stuff out of material, right? So I'm going to leave this how it is. I'll say okay. I'll regenerate this and it's going to add our owl to our part. But if you look at this from a front view, we only have a ½ inch pocket area here, and this is going way over that pocket area. So what would you do? What you would end up doing is you would suppress or adjust the scale factor for Z. So here you can see you have your Z depth. we could set this to what we have available. I think maybe in this part it's a 1/4 inch. So I'll set it to a 1/4 inch. I'll click OK. I will regenerate, and then what you'll see is now that's flattened. So it's staying inside of this area here. Let me see. What is this one? I'm not sure exactly of the depths here, but this one's add, this one's subtract, edit. This one's saying a 1/4 inch. We can drop it down, let's say a little bit more, to give us a little more room. So that's gone down deeper, and then we can add from there, you know, if we wanted to go up higher. And, you know, you can just work with these different numbers until you get the result that you're looking for. So that is not what I wanted to do there, but that's okay. That is what we're talking about when we're talking about reusing elements of your design, your embossed models. Now here's the thing, you can design these your own, but you can also buy STL files. There's lots of companies out there that buy STL, that sell STL files that you can buy. There's our DXF clip art files. You can take them and convert them into 3D shapes, doing exactly what I'm showing you how to do here. So very powerful tool that you can work with, and really allows you to expand upon the kind of work you can push through your shop. And I know I got a button wrong here, but I know that you know, this is more of sign making as an example, but again, it could be logos if you're a manufacturer, if you're a job shop. I mean, this kind of stuff definitely comes up if you want to do some branding on your parts. So hopefully for the guys that have stuck around, I really appreciate you spending some time with me here. I know you guys are busy and time is money, so I do appreciate you spending some time with me. If there's any additional questions that you guys have, please let me know, and we'll cover them now. Again, I appreciate everybody coming out and spending some time today. Like I said, we have a new product release today. You can call Michelle in order to learn more about this. I'm also going to drop a link in the chat dialogue here. If you guys want to learn more about the bundles directly, you can find them right online. So I'm going to drop that. Let's see here if I can find the chat. It's right here. This is the website where you can learn more about the bundles, and you can call Michelle. She'd love to hear from you. 877-209-9301. 877-209-9301. That is the phone number to learn about the new product release and the special bundles that we're offering. Thank you, Gordon, so much for spending some time with me here today. If there's any other questions that you guys have, feel free to fire them away before you leave. I mean, we got 82 people that are still in here, so go ahead and fire a question before you go. Again, I really appreciate you spending some time here. Thomas, I'm glad that you like the information here. Thank you so much for coming. Can you V-carve or emboss over a curved surface? No, you cannot project a V-carve on a curved surface at this time. Thank you, Jamie, for spending some time here. Did I say it wrong? Wrong number, it's 9310. Yeah, 877-209-9310. Call us there. Sorry about that. Thanks, Gary. Sometimes that happens. Bob, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Suzanne, thank you for spending some time. Aloha, Ryan. Glad to see you back. Hopefully you come back and spend some more. I'm glad that you learned some stuff, Curtis. Thank you so much. Terry, thank you. Thank you. That's a really nice compliment. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Kyle, thank you for spending some time with us today. Gary, again, thank you. Everybody, I really appreciate it. This was a fun webinar. If you guys have any additional questions about the features or functionality of Bob Art, V-carve, converting images, embossed models, designing with components, please let me know. Again, for today's promotion, for our new product release and the bundles promotions, call Michelle, 877-209-9310. And otherwise, again, thank you so much for spending some time. If there's any last questions, I'll be answering them now. Otherwise, we're gonna shut down for today. Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Good to see you here. Yeah, you know, it's hard sometimes, Terry. There's a lot of information, so I try to go quick. I'm glad you appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks again, everybody. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. Nick, what do we have up next? Milturn. I don't know if there's any Milturn guys out there, but we got Milturn coming up here shortly. That should be a lot of fun. Larry, if you want to do lithographs with a laser, it's possible that you could change the Z depths to be a power setting using a script. It depends on what controller you have. We'd want to just see some sample code that's run on your machine and how it uses power settings. But I do feel that that is a possible application. A lot of those lasers just work off the raster files directly. So we just need some of the output that you have to see what we can do to help you there. Anything else? Anybody have any additional questions? Last chance, final call. How do you get to me? You can just my email. I'll send a follow. There's a follow-up email that will come to you. So just reply back to that, and we'll get connected from there. You can always call in 877-262-2231, extension 123. Have me paged and get me that way. All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, you know, Steve, I just did a video on that. Let me see here. Let me see if I can get to it. I just did a video on this. It's on our Facebook page and our, no, it's not on YouTube yet. It's on our Facebook page. Are you on our Facebook page, Steve? If you are, it's a 1-minute video that walks you through how to do it. Super simple. You don't have Facebook. I probably should get it. Yeah, get it right now. Go to the store and buy it. Wait, no, you don't have to go to the store. You just have to fill out an account. It's no big deal. Yeah, we'll probably have that video up on YouTube here if it isn't already up there. So you'll see that shortly. All right, guys, that's what I got for you here today. Any last questions, last chance? Are you getting to my question? The V5, I have to open up the SolidWorks, and I think I've already done a video on it, Reginald. So I'll just send you an email with that video, and that will go through that with you. Same, if I can find the YouTube link for you, Steve, I'll send that as well. All right, guys, thank you so much. Everybody, hide stock. Erwin, just right-click on the stock and go to blank, and it will blank out. Steve, thanks a lot. I'm keeping it growing. I got a wedding to go to this weekend, so it might get a little bit of a trim, but it'll still stay epic, I assure you. All right, guys, thank you so much. That's what I got for you here today. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.